everyone. Welcome to the Trucking Tower podcast. In this segment of Expert Insights, we're going to be talking about venture capital and technology today. And I'm very excited to be joined by Jason Gayl, who is the managing partner at Cyber Capital Partners. How are you doing today, Jason?
Great, Andy. How are you today?
Doing really well. Thank you. And thanks for coming on with me. You know, I have a list of questions I wanted to walk through with you for our listeners and our viewers out there. Some expert insights, tips for success, pitfalls to avoid, those sorts of things. So just to kick things off, where were you? What happened? Who are you surrounded with that inspired you to do what you do today?
Well, it's a great question. And you know, I've spent a little bit of time thinking about that. When I was a little kid, my stepfather's brother was an international currency trader. And I was only 5, and he was telling me, you know, how bananas cost different in each country based off of their currency fluctuations. And so that was an initial spark. The real big sparks were realizing that as I took the first half of my career in mutual funds and realizing I didn't have a whole lot of value to add to publicly traded stocks and bonds, I decided to get my MBA in finance strategy and entrepreneurship so I could advise the business owners, take equity stakes in their businesses, and actually do what, you know, is banned by the SEC, and that's insider trading. I wanted to be able to understand how to make the business successful, when to put more capital in and when to exit. And, you know, the third part of that is I realized I was good at making other people successful. And so it was really time for me to put my own resources towards making my bottom line successful, and that for my business partners and the rest of our team. We had some great success around 2015, sitting down with investors around one particular company. And as we had individual conversations with each one of them, it was apparent that I had now reached a point in my own career that I was ready, that my firm was ready to take that next step forward and go manage other people's money. So those were some pretty critical points in my career.
Okay. Well, very good. You know, I'm in this whole world of technology and venture capital myself, and it's fascinating to me. And it's funny because through college and high school, you don't get trained on how to get venture capital.
No, you don't.
What not to do and so forth. So I'm sure a lot of my audience will appreciate your insights. And on that front, what are some of the top 2 or 3 mistakes to avoid based on your experiences?
So I think the number one is really understanding where to be the smartest person in the room, or more importantly, know how to bring other smarter people into the room while still being the leader. I think that's a really big challenge that most entrepreneurs struggle with. So there's a lot of bravado that has to be done. You got to fake it till you make it. And oftentimes that's what kills the interest in the opportunity. They might have a smart idea, but they just don't really understand how to balance that. So that'd be number one. I think the second piece that goes particularly with venture capital and technology is you need to have a solution that's going to scale. So if you're customizing every customer deployment, it turns into a consulting engagement as opposed to a delivery of a product. And when you're thinking about what venture capital is there for, it's to go from a prototype to a deployable solution that can be deployed in multiple environments. And then the next round of capital there is to go fund marketing so that business can do the same thing and scale, right? You've got to continuously be innovating, but, understanding where your business needs to cut out some of the waste from, each new deployment in a different way. I think that's a pretty big thing that entrepreneurs tend to make a mistake about frequently. And then the third is really not understanding the competitors, believing that your solution is unique, it's the best in the industry, and not having the courage to go challenge yourself, challenge your organization, challenge the investment that's already been made by comparing it to the competitors that may already be in your field. And, with that whole belief that, there's no way they could have something better than what we've created. Oftentimes that's what kills the business.
Right. Absolutely. I think the competitive intelligence is very important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So on the flip side of that, what are some of the top success secrets that you've seen over the years?
So we did a really extensive dive in a managed service provider, and when we did so, we worked with a firm that specialized in this concept of operational maturity, where 80% of the profits of an industry are captured by the 20% that are most operationally mature. So number one is standardize your processes. Make sure that what you're doing is going to be repeated. It gives you pricing power. It gives you a lot of different things that drive operational efficiency. So what that means is really diving deep into understanding your financials, making sure that you're pursuing the opportunities that are going to grow the business as opposed to just trying to capture every dollar possible. And making sure that you're going through a repeated process, using that over and over and over again to manage the operations of the business. So number one is really focusing on operational maturity. The second one is don't be afraid to look at every part of the business, look at everyone in the business, look at everybody outside of the business. Starting about 11 years ago, I was reaching out on LinkedIn. I now have a network of close to 20,000 people. And that was really driven by, I needed to find the people that were going to be willing to engage in the conversation with me, with Cyber Capital Partners. We realized we needed to understand the entire ecosystem. And so getting 20 or 50 of the same type of person in each of the sections, it required a long time of being willing to have conversations, listening to the other side, pulling on threads, etc. The third, and I've already mentioned this, is really standardize your solution. If you go from client to client and you're creating a new and unique solution each and every time, that makes you a technologist, right? It's what's exciting about the job. If you instead go and say, what I'm trying to do is get 20 customers who are going to buy the same products, and if I know there's another 1,000 of those customers or 5,000 of those customers behind it, once you've reached 20, you'll be able to go capture hundreds. And that's where you start making some serious profits.
Absolutely. I've been able to be in sales and marketing roles in my career, and say you better capture some sales.
Yeah,
get
exactly.
going, or there's going to be no business, basically. So
right.
Absolutely critical. So how can we support you? What are you working on? What can we do to support you?
Well, what we're working on right now is raising our next funds, which is always a challenge. And it's really interesting because, getting the message out is probably the most important part of what you guys can do to help us. We just received, as a country, President Biden's cybersecurity executive order. And it will be really interesting to see. The American public just saw the Colonial Pipeline get hacked. That's the first time that a breach that has occurred has impacted a large portion of the United States population, not just from having their data stolen, but having their daily routine breached, right? Mm-hmm. So this executive order that's come out, we have the opportunity to treat it as though it's just another, thing from a president and ignore it through Congress. Or we have the opportunity to treat it as the awakening that it is. We've just had another 9/11 attack. It might not feel the exact same thing, but if they were to take down our natural gas pipelines, if they were to take down our energy sectors, it takes down not only our U.S. economy, but also our national security. And that is a big portion of what we're focused on, is making sure that the investments that we're making are in the technologies and the businesses that are really here to shore up and defend the United States cybersecurity posture. So, what you guys can do to help us is get that message out, make sure that the audience is paying attention to this critical issue of defensive cyber. And it's not just in the U.S. military, it's not just in the U.S. Federal agencies, but it's in the nuclear power plants, it's in the hospitals, it's in the financial services, the energy sector, oil and gas, et cetera. these are the areas where we as ordinary citizens, whether or not we're fortunate to be the investors or the leaders of those businesses, we're the employees of the businesses, we all have a requirement to really think about how do we shore up and protect the United States, particularly around cybersecurity where we're so vulnerable.
Right, absolutely. It's very critical for our infrastructure to be there to defend ourselves. So absolutely agree. What would you say overall about your experience in booking and coming onto the show?
Well, it's super easy, and you do a great job. So I'm honored to be a guest. It's a lot of fun. And if anybody else is looking to raise their hand, don't hesitate.
Well, thank you for that. And we're fortunate. We get about 18,000 views and audio playbacks a month. Yep. So you'll get some eyeballs on this for sure.
That's great.
And what would you say as a final word of advice for others?
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening and thinking about what their careers are. And, I'd say it's really simple. Don't be afraid to innovate. This country really needs to be thinking about American innovation. And it's not some stranger, it's you. It is every one of us who has to be thinking about how do we take this country forward. We're probably 50 years away from the last serious, call for America to get involved. And currently, I think the number one thing that we have huge risks around is our lack of individual innovation. And so I think that's ultimately the most important part of what we can do as an American citizen.
Okay. Well, absolutely. Cybersecurity is fascinating. And, I think we're going to see a lot of innovation in that area. I think we're going to have to. It's just critical or we're going to be in trouble.
I think we have some great technologies.
Mm.
We're definitely learning how to make sure that they stack up. They get measured, that they're actually tested before they get deployed. I think that's a huge part of what we got to do. But, in terms of where do I see the future? I think there's a lot of money coming for cybersecurity, innovation in cybersecurity. And I look forward to being part of it and hope your audience can be part of it as well.
Well, thank you for sharing your insights and expertise with us, Jason. I really appreciate you coming on to the show with me.
Well, Andy, I appreciate your time.
All right. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Trucking Tower Podcast, Expert Insights. And we'll see you guys soon. Take care, everybody.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.